Hello again, YouTubers, All with SpongeBob 101 back here again on the SpongeBob channel. We are reviewing SpongeBob episode 281, Salty Sponge and Karen for Spot. The synopsis states, SpongeBob works the grill at the toughest joint in town. Also, Karen looks after Spot while Plankton goes out of town. Let's dive right in. Salty Sponge was jam-packed with a mix of old and new. New in that we get to once again see SpongeBob operating at his best in an unfamiliar environment, along with the interior of the Salty Spittoon also getting development. But old with so many callbacks to the past in terms of characters, design, and references. The episode begins with SpongeBob bursting out of his pineapple in true happy fashion on his way to work at the Krusty Krab. Unfortunately, Mr. Krabs has temporarily shut the Krusty Krab due to a sea urchin infestation and has contracted his employees to work elsewhere. Squidward gets a week of no SpongeBob in the entertainment industry, i.e. the circus, while SpongeBob is sent to work as a cook at the Salty Spittoon. Obviously remembering how he's not tough enough to get in, he expresses fear and concern, but with a little face shifting, SpongeBob has his tough guy face on and he heads in. Initially, the experience is fairly terrifying, but once SpongeBob tries to imagine the experience as similar to working at the Krusty Krab, he kicks into high gear with his culinary expertise and actually comes up with delicious tough guy food. We also see a whole bunch of characters that are grown up, including the jocks from Camp Coral. This is when Mrs. Puff bursts in with her big fat meanie leather jacket. Yeah, that's a thing. And throws a weight around, but the moment she hears SpongeBob's voice, she panics and runs away. So the patrons notice how SpongeBob did scare Puff away, and then SpongeBob is put through a trial to determine his toughness. These are handled in a pretty funny way, and once again helps to reinforce the innocent ingenuity on part of SpongeBob. For example, letting the robot pony ride him, and using his abrasive side to carve out a wood carving for one of the patrons. Soon he is crowned the toughest guy in the Salty Spittoon and is given free rein to do anything. SpongeBob decides to remake the Salty Spittoon into the Softy Spittoon, basically making it essentially indistinguishable from the Weenie Hut Jr. across the street. Very cool, fact that they actually put in the Weenie Hut Jr. here. The next day, a motorcycle gang shows up at the Salty Spittoon, utterly shocked to see what has happened with the establishment. We are also treated to a whole song featuring the Softy Spittoon in the tune of the SpongeBob theme song, which was absolutely amazing. However, they exchange verbal jabs with the patrons of the Salty Spittoon, and soon a brawl breaks out, which is actually typical for such an establishment. SpongeBob doesn't seem bothered by it at all, and this is when Mr. Krabs shows up wanting to check up on how SpongeBob's doing and is shocked to see what has happened. The owner of the Salty Spittoon also says that he's keeping SpongeBob permanently because of how good a cook he is and also how the patrons like him, but Krabs ain't having any of that, so that results in a brawl between the guy and the owner and Mr. Krabs. SpongeBob then fishes Krabs out of the brawl cloud, and Krabs rides away on SpongeBob, with the brawl cloud following their tough leader. The plot is wild, epic, and hilarious at the same time. The beginning of the episode made me think about the start of the Best Day Ever episode, where in that case the Krusty Krab was condemned. Then SpongeBob being transferred to the Salty Spittoon obviously brought up memories of No Weenies Allowed and The Big Switch. Considering how good a cook SpongeBob is, he'll be able to land a job at any eating establishment. Then we had the Puff segment, which gives continuity to new student Starfish and her punk character that the writers have been trying to build up across both Camp Coral and the main series. I really enjoyed the transformation of the Salty Spittoon and SpongeBob being crowned the toughest guy there. It was so ridiculous but funny as well. Even though it had to come to an end, we had another crazy SpongeBob moment with Krabs riding Chef SpongeBob into the horizon. The plot gets 9 out of 10. Animation gets 9 out of 10. It was fantastic. Not only did we have a whole bunch of different art styles and expressions mashed into this one episode, I noticed some use of the Fear of a Krabby Patty style with Krabs and SpongeBob, as well as some traditional season 1 to 3 designs remade with a modern touch. Unique characteristics gets 10 out of 10. This episode is a mishmash of so many SpongeBob concepts from the past. ranging from SpongeBob working away from the Krusty Krab to Punk Puff and the Salty Spittoon. This episode is shaping up to be one of the most memorable in a really long time. Overall, Salty Sponge gets 28 out of 30 from me. Moving on to Karen for Spot. I think the highlight of this episode was the fact that we had another round of focus on Spot. We haven't seen him much after all. The episode begins with Plankton leaving Spot in Karen's care as he heads off for a Doomsday Device Expo. Unfortunately, the moment Plankton departs, Spot tears up all the to-do post-its that Plankton left for Karen, resulting in Karen not being sure how to care for Spot. This is fairly strange, since Karen literally lives in the same place as Plankton. Surely she must have had some idea on how Plankton previously cared for Spot. Nevertheless, Karen tries to perform an analysis on Spot and then proceeds to inflate it. This results in Spot blowing up and Karen thinking that she killed it. Being a SpongeBob episode, of course, SpongeBob shows up with Gary for a playdate and they stick around for the rest of the episode. Karen takes Spot for a walk with SpongeBob and Gary to help Spot burn off some energy, but this doesn't go well when a combination of Gary's slime and Spot's slime causes a fire hydrant to corrode and disintegrate, resulting in water bursting out onto the roadway and causing a pileup. I really like this part where Gary immediately dons an emergency services outfit and proceeds to what SpongeBob calls another shift. Seems like Gary does really take a lot of responsibilities on. While that's being taken care of, Karen and SpongeBob have to chase Spot down the street. Plankton calls in at an inconvenient moment, and in order to allow him to hear Spot's voice, Karen literally throws the phone across the street to Spot. That is some risky stuff right there. Another notable occurrence are the background characters in the Doomsday Device Expo scene. We've got Man Ray and the Dirty Bubble and even the Moth from the Nightlight episode. Plankton highlights a doomsday device that he procured before the whole convention hall burns up thanks to Plankton leaving his suitcase of underwear near, I think, was an open flame. Anyway, Plankton needs to get out of there, right? So he's coming home early, which is actually kind of positive considering how Spot is creating a mess. We then move back to the chum bucket where SpongeBob is visibly disturbed at a chum and refuses to eat it, instead feeding it to Spot. This starts off a feeding frenzy, with Spot consuming all of the furnishing in the chum bucket. Karen then produces a pill that will keep nourishing Spot so he won't eat anything else, but this backfires, causing Spot to grow and keep growing, destroying the chum bucket in the process. Plankton arrives home just in time to see the disaster unfold, and his doomsday device goes off underneath Spot. Now, it isn't immediately clear what effect the doomsday device had, but well, everyone was kind of fine after that. Karen and Plankton quarrel for a bit while SpongeBob tries to get Spot to split off from his enlarged amoeba body with a treat, and it works. Of course, that's not to say that everyone's safe though, because the amoeba bubble that had been growing as part of Spot then appears to swallow up the sun before the episode closes. That was a very strange ending. I'm not sure what's going on there, but yeah, I'd say the plot gets 6 out of 10. I didn't really get it. The first part of the episode was fairly normal in that everything felt fairly coherent and reactionary on Karen's part. Also, Gary's role was pretty cool, but then the combination of the Doomsday Device and the Amoeba Bubble just doesn't make any sense as the way to close the episode. Also, we don't get to see what happens to Bikini Bottom and the world at the end, but I guess we can assume nothing turned out well. Animation gets 7 out of 10. I really like the look of Plankton's lab, including the SpongeBob robot from Welcome to the Chum Bucket. Really reminds me of the lab in Lights Camera Pans for the PC. Also, the Doomsday Device Expo scenes were very detailed and included several villains from the show, which were nice to see. Unique characteristics gets 7 out of 10. Sure, having a pet playdate isn't too common, but then again, I don't feel like the writers had that much to expound on. Yes, Gary can have a fairly detailed backstory, but Spot is just an amoeba with nothing too profound character-wise. Overall, Karen for Spot gets 20 out of 30 from me. And that's about it for this review video. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought about Karen for Spot as well as Salty Sponge. Make sure to subscribe, like, and I'll see you guys in the next SpongeBob video. Till then, bye!